Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's garden video. So I didn't do a lot of projects per se in the garden, but I did spend a ton of time in the greenhouse this week, starting what I would consider to be sort of my summer plants. And that includes squashes and cucumbers and basil and things that from the Pacific Northwest standards, especially out here, you need more heat to get them going. So they're kind of later season crops for us. And so I had saved last year, I got a whole bunch of pumpkins from a bunch of different people who live in the neighborhood, all different varieties. I have no idea if they're heirloom, if they're true seeds or anything, but I did spend a bunch of time potting them up and getting them started. And really, I will take whatever I get from the pumpkins, and if they're pretty or not, I will put them on display in October, and then all the other ones we have left over go to the animals. So I'm always excited about them, and I don't really care what I get. I also took time, you see me there, planting up my tomatoes. They aren't very big, as you can see, they're only a couple leaves big. But what I do like to do with my tomatoes specifically is get them into larger pots pretty early and let their roots just kind of take off. I like to have a really good root system established before I put them in the ground. And I'm aiming to put those tomatoes in the ground mid-May, so I got another month to go for them to keep growing before they're ready to go. I also started here, you see me starting some cucumbers. I tried saving some seeds this year, so we'll see if any of them germinate. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not, but I always like trying to save seeds. That to me is a pretty fun experiment. So from the cucumbers I got this last year, I saved some and we will see. And if they don't work, I'll just, go back and buy some seeds. And this was a huge project. It goes back to the whole beet debate. I think some comments have been on a couple of my videos from before about can you transplant beets and this and that. And I will continue to say, and I hope I'm not proven wrong this year, I have had success transplanting beets. I don't let them get very big, but I do like getting them one plant per cell, letting them grow a little bit and then planting them out. If anyone remembers, what ended up happening this year is I had probably 100 beets started. They were a little bigger than this, but I had them started and I planted them out, planted the whole thing out in the ground, and something came along and ate all the leaves off. And historically, what I've typically seen is that something will come along at ground level and just knock the whole plant over and eat the whole plant, the little tiny seedling. But this year specifically, they ate all the leaves off. So I think it was a different type of pest, maybe a rodent or something, I'm not sure. But the whole crop was decimated, so I started these beets and I multi-seeded them in these seeding trays, and now I'm putting them, and it took a long time because as you can see there's a ton of them out there, planting them into individual seed trays. I will give them probably another week in these seed trays before I decide to plant them out, but you can see they're doing pretty good here. I also decided to plant out some beans. These are some scarlet runner beans, and they produce very beautiful red flowers and long bean pods. So I'm excited about those. So I got those started. I also just kind of spent some time doing some random things. I planted a couple more cauliflower out because even though I've had some good success so far, knock wood, that the cauliflower are doing okay on the ground, I wanted to have some backups. I started some dill. I started some sunflowers. This was sort of a random week of starting a ton in the greenhouse. And so you see me doing that. I did decide one day to go out and I had a bunch of lettuce starts and kale starts and cabbage starts. So you see me the next day, it's a nice sunny day, I decided to go plant everything out. And again, you'll see that everything I plant out is pretty small. And these kale, actually, the ones that I'm planting right here, they don't actually look that great. I had saved my own seeds and started them from seed, and they germinated just fine, but they're just not developing strong, healthy leaves, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but I'm going to put them in the ground and give them a try. I will probably this week, sort of for insurance purposes, germinate and start a couple more kale plants just to make sure I have some on hand. And they will stay in the ground all summer long, all through the winter, and I'll just be picking off of them, and kind of like the one that went to flower last year. If they go to flower or whatever, that's fine, they get fed to the animals. So there's always a use for even bolting plants in our yard. Here you see me planting out that tray of cabbage plants that I had as well, so I'm excited for them. We eat a lot of cabbage in this house. Last week I had started some and direct sowed, which I very rarely do, some carrots, and you see me there pulling off the cover. It had been warm, and I'm keeping it well watered. I covered it to keep it well watered because for me I find that carrots do really require a lot of water to germinate. So I left that covered for 3 or 4 days, and then I pulled it off because I want them when they do finally germinate to pop up and not hit that plastic. So now it's been removed. And then lastly, you see me here on that same day I'm out planting. These are my leftover lettuces that I had. I had, a lot of the lettuces you see in the background that are already in the ground and coming along just fine. But I always like to have insurance plants, if you will. So I always start a couple more than I plant out. And then at some point I decide, oh, it's fine. I'll just put them in the ground and see where everything goes. And that's kind of the last I'm going to do for lettuces until the season is over. The next day I did decide to start more things, which are additional beans and some corn. Funny enough, I start corn in the greenhouse too. I make sure that it germinates. I like to see a germinated plant before I put it in the ground. And then we fast forward to today. That was pretty much the extent of what I did. This is what the seedlings look like in my greenhouse right now. Most of these are actually flowers for the garden, not so much plants. There are some chard in there and some other smaller things in there, but most of them in that particular grouping are annual flowers. Here you see my tomatoes, and I did also notice that I was looking through these, and these are some beans and some cucumbers. Nothing's germinated yet, but something was scratching, and I mentioned this in a previous video, and I think there's a mouse in my greenhouse that comes in at night. Right there you see it, so I actually set up a mouse trap, and it went off last night, but I didn't catch a mouse, so I will keep trying to catch them. There you see my raspberry and my garlic doing really well. This is my beets that I have, the beet that I overwintered. Nothing really happening with the asparagus or the berries yet. Here are my spinach, and some things kind of eating those leaves too, but they're surviving. These are my broad beans, still doing okay. Broad bean or fava bean. These are my peas, and you can see they're all coming up nicely, starting to hold on to that trellis. This is my row of cauliflower. Knock wood, they're doing pretty well. I did lose, or a couple of them are not doing great, but I'm really excited because we eat a ton of cauliflower. And these are my broccolis. Here you see the strawberry patch, which is getting really nice and full, and I'm excited to get a lot of berries. There was a spent kale, and then here you see all the cabbages I planted this last week, and then there go into my lettuces, and then in the background you see my rhubarb, which I harvested a couple stalks off this week. And then some onions, some old onions and some new onions in the ground there, and then I thought I'd just leave you with a little video of Adolf. Thanks for watching, everyone.